Good evening. If you have a mobile phone, if you'd like to put it on silent, please, thank you. Huge welcome to Phil Escott and Zahir Khan with Myths on the Path to Enlightenment. Phil and Zach, between them, have practiced many disciplines including yoga, Sufism and meditation. These lads are actively seeking betterment so they may share what has unfolded, and some sit around awaiting change. They run the following websites, all the W's, fallingintothe-mystery.com and all the W's, pureactivity.net. Covered tonight, dogma of various flavours, physical health, belief systems, lifestyle and more. Do expect a bit of a challenge here and there. Please welcome Phil Escott and Zahir Khan.
Thank you very much. Yeah, this is my second time here, so I'm really honoured to be asked back again. Zach's going to do the second half, so I'm going to get all the boring stuff out of the way in the first half. I feel like I'm the cleaning lady who's clearing out some show house, and Zach's going to show you around later on. So I'm going to do all this, the more earthy stuff in the first bit. So can we see little flavour for who's here? Is anybody feel like they're on some spiritual path here? We have some spiritual kind of people. Anybody feel dissatisfied with this spiritual path or some frustrations on it? Anyone vegetarian? Anyone vegan? Okay. Bear with me on this. Be easy on me. I might challenge some of this, but okay, cool. So, just if I don't suppose many of you were here last time, so just a little introduction to why I've come to be here. Back in, since the 70s, 80s, I've always been massively seeking this and that and trying to figure out diet and lifestyle and awakening and what is it all about. And back in 95, 96, I even wrote this book, Pure Activity, and it was okay, it's a training book and it's Ayurveda and all that kind of thing. And then there was the diet section on vegetarianism, and I was a TM meditator at the time and getting into all the cities and flying thing and living in Skelmersdale, convinced about all this vegetarianism and, eating rice and dal every day. And, yeah, it was a great time, but then certain physical things started to kick off. I was kind of quite big and muscly, owning a gym at the end of the 90s, but quite a little while later, things started to go wrong. So this was kind of what happened. So on the left, this is me with the sort of conventional thing that I thought I knew about, diet and exercise and calories in, calories out, and meditating, and I don't really need anything but my mantra and all that sort of thing. So this is where it ended up, and this was a lot of ailments, a lot of calcifications in arteries and fatty liver and cysts on the liver, and and eventually psoriatic arthritis really crippled me in 2010. And I've already done a talk for New Horizons on that, so I won't really go on about that so much. But yeah, then I had to really challenge myself to fix it, because I thought I knew a lot about everything, and I thought, okay, right, raw veganism. Let's go for raw veganism. And I had, in 2006, I'd had this moment where I decided to let go of all of meditation and the TM movement. And in that moment of absolutely letting it go, with all the last of the guilt, almost a little religious guilt of why wasn't I going into the dome, the meditation building there? Why wasn't I meditating as I should be, Anyway, so finally I just let it go, and I thought, I'm just going to get rid of it. And in that moment, there was a total shift of perception, which finally stuck and was permanent. And it's something that my last talk was on missing little signs, little awakenings that maybe you resist. and how that led over the years to an enormous autoimmune problem. And yes, it did, but this time slightly different. I'll take a different angle on this. So yes, there was that moment where there was this total shift of perception. And so 4 years later, when I fell really ill, it was almost a puzzle, because why should I be ill now? Why should I be so overweight, so ill? And lying there crippled on the sofa, and my first thought was, right, you've got to detox. You've got to detox the body. You've got to go raw vegan. You've got to juice everything. And anyway, as I see now, predictably, I ended up fixing a couple of things. It can seem okay to start with, but then I ended up with just emaciated and still with some fat on, but the muscle had gone and lots of inflammation still there. So on the right there, that's me stuffing myself full of nothing but meat and saturated fat, and suddenly health came back online. It was a last resort. It was like nothing I'd ever thought of before. So I thought, okay, let's really look at what's going on here. Let's disassemble so much dogma. And I believe, honestly, that if you follow conventional methods, it's very unlikely that, number one, you're going to get healthy, and number two, you're going to awaken, whether there's any way that you can be made to awaken or not. But to me, what fell away, one of the big things that fell away, was spirituality. It seemed absolutely nonsensical after that. It seemed to be very contrived. There's three reasons, isn't there, really, why people become spiritual? And I've been guilty of all of them, really, and not that there's anything wrong with any of them. The need for belonging or community, that's huge. That's why people get into religions, they get into spirituality. The need to feel better or happier. Of course, everybody wants to do that. And the genuine desire for awakening, which is surprisingly rare. I've realized in the TM movement that I'm in, that it's actually quite rare, I think, and if anybody does have a real shift, it's discouraged to talk about it. You get quite violent responses to it quite often, so it's best just not to mention it, really. And I think a lot of the reasons for doing this talk today and structuring it like this is how many people in my community in Skelmersdale are dying of cancer, basically. And 3 friends I've lost since the last time I talked here in the summer, and I know there's more who are very, very sick with all sorts of autoimmunity and cancer. And I think I have a little bit of an angle on it that I can present today of why this is happening, because it's just one of the big misconceptions of the spiritual path of being vegetarian and detoxing and being. We'll come to that. So who are we? We're just a collection of our accumulated beliefs. And this can keep us from so many things. For awakening, we need to find out which beliefs are false and let them go, especially the big one of the mistake that we are individual entities. Of course, there's the paradox that we are, and we're not. So, but that is the hugest disconnect with our ancestral heritage, I think. For feeling better, we just need to choose beliefs that make us suffer the least. I don't think that anything I'm presenting here tonight is the ultimate knowledge. I learn every day. Stuff I've learned since the last time I talked here, to put what I experienced in my own body into perspective, I think is extremely convincing, and it mirrors nature in some fascinating ways. But is it the ultimate knowledge? Of course it isn't. We all move from one thing to the other, and I've come to this knowledge from throwing out so many other dogmas that I've had. So what is awakening? Well, what is it when people talk about it? It's the subtle shift, the acceptance of oneness and the paradox. It's not bells and whistles. I think in the spiritual community, we're looking for too much. We're looking for massive powers and omniscience, and it isn't actually that. And I think the quest for that keeps people from it. No individual actually awakens. This is a weird thing, because when it hits you, it is that universe awakening through you. It's almost impossible to put into words, and I'm going to leave that one and let Zahir dance around that one later on, because he's great at that. The ability to see through the absurd, it is, because you lose the attachment, a lot of attachments to whatever it is that you believed, because you don't really take yourself so seriously once you see yourself as just a little cog in the mechanism, a little chip in the computer, you lose that clinging on to your beliefs. So it's easier to throw them out. And illness helps with this too. My greatest guru ever is being that sick, being that in that much agony, and not even being able to walk to the toilet sometimes because my joints were so inflamed. And they said it was incurable. And so I had to figure my own way out. And you've got to throw away a lot of your own beliefs, as well as the dogma that you're seeing coming from the medical profession and stuff like that. So it doesn't make you immortal or invincible. It doesn't. It's this subtle awakening, this subtle shift. There may be many, many powers and all sorts of wonderful things way beyond that. And I'm sure that the thing that people talk about as awakening is a very, very subtle thing. So it's hard to focus on even the desire for it, or even to enjoy an existing one. When I met Zach because we both did something called a Buddha at the gas pump interview, and we met in Liverpool, and we really hit it off, and we have a lot of fun. But after my Buddha at the gas pump interview, I did mention this meat thing, and it's an outrageous thing to a lot of spiritual people. And I had a lot of hey Debs, and I had a lot of people contacting me after. Sometimes some spiritual teachers who felt like they'd lost their awakenings even. And to me, I would Skype them and I'd look at them and they'd expect some spiritual kind of answer. And I'd just say, run me through what you're eating. Because looking at them, it was so obvious that they were being depleted and their guts were trashed by all the grains and the pulses. And when you can see somebody almost brought back to their awakening by putting the body back together, because it's all one. There's not a separation between body, mind, and spirit. It's all one. It's all a machine that works exactly together. It's no surprise that emotions create problems in the body and that kind of thing. It's no surprise at all. It's all the one thing. So it's hard to enjoy anything, really, if the body is that sick. Okay, the perception is still there that everything's one, but you're still in just as much agony as somebody else. And if anybody tells you different, I think they're faking. So, one of my favourite quotes, Ram Tzu, he's actually a guy who, Wayne Lickerman, isn't he? Yeah, he's just a lovely quote I saw on one of his things, bring me your dearest held beliefs and with any luck you'll leave without them. By all means, hang on to beliefs if they make you happy, they make you comfortable. But if they're not, throw some of them out, move on. So the disconnects, the big disconnects, as I see them from coming through this illness, food. I'm going to deal a lot with food tonight, but it's not even the main thing in health. It really isn't. I believe that's in the realms of light and emotions. But food, it has so much dogma built up around it. Like if somebody comes to me and with an autoimmune disease, and I talk to them about diet, and they're a McDonald's eater or something, very easy. You tell them to eat buttery steak all day, they're fine. If I have a vegan come to me, it's very difficult to break through layers and layers of dogma. And where has this all come from? Well, it's come from religion and spirituality. There's never been a vegetarian society. There hasn't. Electricity, non-native EMFs, you know, the power grids. This is when disease really kicked off. When electricity came in, artificial light, the blue light that we're not supposed to see ruins our whole circadian biology. And when you understand circadian biology, you understand the cycles of nature, really. You understand why the food is damaging you in whichever latitude you're in. It's not about there's an ideal human diet. It's not about that. Shoes, we're not grounded. This was another bad move. As soon as I can in the summer, I just walk around barefoot. When I was really sick, I'd walk out in the back garden, put my feet on the ground. The inflammation dissipates, particularly in the cold, particularly if it was snowing. I spent a winter in cold thermogenesis, just getting in cold baths, going out into the snow, rolling around. It's incredible for resetting it. And as we'll see later, it also has another use. Yep, chairs and toilets. Well, we're sitting all day. Sitting is the new smoking, as they say. Toilets, well, same thing. Nobody's eliminating properly because they're eating a load of fibre, which is dreadful stuff, as you've probably all been told, completely the opposite. And so, you know, we should be squatting down. We should be, all these disconnects, there's many more. These are just some I've pulled out the hat, really. So nature has no religion, no spirituality. Take yourself back to a mindset without these, like an alien just appearing here, like a baby. Sometimes I like to just sit there and you just take away all the concepts, colours, names of things, you know? And then you're getting close. You can see that you are part of everything. You can see that there is no real distinction between you and everything else. And this is how everything works hand in hand beautifully. Science has compartmentalized stuff so much that we don't see this. It's easy to see if you think about dreams. If you think when you're dreaming, and you're dreaming about a street or a boat or zombies chasing you, who are those zombies? Who is the street? It's just you, isn't it? It's just you. And when you wake up, it wasn't anybody else, it was just you. And that's what's happening. But it's not the personal that's woken up, it's everything. It's the universe is seeing itself through another pair of eyes. So when you're talking to somebody, it's the universe communicating with itself. That sounds really corny. I'm going to get off those terms because they're actually quite annoying. So, but nature is already awakened. It all is. We've only just convinced ourselves that we haven't. It's probably the natural state for indigenous cultures. They don't worship gods and things that they've made up, some humans made up. They worship the sun. They worship the rain, the rivers, because it has a direct influence on them. They realize that this is God. You know, the sun, the light from the sun gives life to everything. So why on earth shouldn't they worship the sun? We worship some dude who was supposed to have lived 2,000 years ago and might never have lived 2,000 years ago. And we think they're sort of very backwards for worshipping the sun. I don't. I think they're very cool. So the problems with spirituality, we're always looking for future reward, chasing bliss, chasing experiences. I think this is a massive mistake in spirituality. Experiences are not what you're looking for. It's the canvas that the experiences are painted on. What's behind that experience? What always was there? Somebody comes and says, I had this wonderful experience. Well, is it still going on? No, it isn't. Well, it's not it then, is it? It's the unchanging field underneath, the quantum field or the unified field as quantum physicists call it. They're kind of getting close. They're just trying to look at it through a microscope rather than look at it through all of their senses at once. Over-mystification of waking up. So much is made out to be this great thing, this huge thing that you must attain. And I don't know whether it's some kind of mind control with the gurus. You won't get this until you've done this much meditation or this many pious observances or something. And another problem is separating practice and everyday life. You get these real experienced meditators who have this huge bliss, and they sit there morning and evening, meditating, having these wonderful experiences. And it's great, it's very good for the physiology, as long as you know exactly what it's doing, and it's not going to one day wake you up all of a sudden if you do enough. And the spiritual materialism comes in. I need this blanket, I need these beads, I need such and such. Honestly, when you have that kind of shift, you look at that as probably the worst absurdity. It's so bizarre. And clinging to added dogma, of course. Under this comes everything. You have to do this, you have to face this way, you have to eat this kind of food because it's sattvic or unsattvic or rajasic or tamasic, you know, all the Ayurvedic thing, which everybody's misinterpreted anyway. Now, this is something I only heard the other day. I'm not saying this is true, but it fascinated me. Did the CIA bring the gurus? Did they bring them in to create this enormous culture of self-obsession? I need to wake up. I'm not bothering about that issue that the government are doing. Just keep them quiet. Feed them a vegetarian diet. They'll be pliable, you know? There we go. Maybe. Who knows? But yes, it's just, as Ramana Maharshi said, he's pretty cool as guys go. He didn't really have a method that he got everybody clinging to. It's just a matter of getting rid of the false belief that you're not already enlightened. This talk would be absurd probably to some guy who lives out in the rainforest. They've just, why on earth are you talking about that? It's like talking about, I've got a left leg. Hey, I've got a left leg. It's so natural to them. So staying healthy is the same way. It's reconnecting to our ancestral heritage. The gross disconnects mirror the subtle. It all works in the same way. Everything works in exactly the same way. There's no thing that's spiritual and thing that isn't. So if we can find out our ancestral disconnects, we can fix our bodies and we can fix our consciousness. The diet has more dogma than anything. There's lenses, you can see it through. Vegan, standard low-fat diet. Where's that got us? Heart disease and obesity and God knows how much immunity. That's obviously nonsense. That's not working. So the calories in, calories out, the Ayurvedic, the blood type, the paleo, ancestral, that's kind of getting close, but they're still making some silly rules up and dogma of their own. The low carb, high fat, yes, it's curing diabetics. Get rid of all the carbs. Yes, it really is. All the knowledge was nonsense, but still they're missing so much. The inflammatory response, if you look at foods that are inflammatory and foods that aren't, people are obsessed with inflammation. The insulin, leptin sensitivity, yes, but here's another interesting one. And now there's a guy here, Graham Norbury, he's a mate of mine, and he knows a lot more about this than I do, so he's going to throw some eggs at me if I get this wrong. Deuterium, it's an isotope of hydrogen. It makes heavy hydrogen, which creates D2O, which is heavy water, as opposed to H2O. Deuterium is used in nature selectively to promote growth. There's nothing wrong in nature. It's, you know, it's used in the womb, babies grow, in fruit, it's in eggs. Eggs are great, but it's part of the reproductive cycle. It's not so good for adult animals that aren't clearing it, that aren't living in their natural environment. It clogs the cell, affecting electron transport, redox potential. This is like clearing the waste out of the cell, basically. That's turning over the waste in the cell. And Graham told me something a little while ago I thought was a good analogy for it, which was like a fat guy stuck in a turnstile on the tube, you know, and all the other thin guys can't get past, so they can't get out, and it's all clogged up. It's becoming quite a common thought that it's at the root of all aging and cancer and other chronic disease. It takes all the mystery and confusion out of diet, definitely. And cancer researchers have known about this for quite some time. They've been fixing people's cancer by giving them a load of deuterium-depleted water and using other ways to fix deuterium. I think there's perhaps some things they're missing, but it just shows that if you shift that level of deuterium in the body, it suddenly comes back online. We've kind of done it with my mum recently. I believe now that's how I did it with my arthritis, although I didn't know at the time. But what I was doing was actually doing that. And my mum's breast cancer, we fixed that. You know, that's reversed. It was really horrible, just coming through the skin, all purple and nasty. Skin's back to normal. Tumours come right down to almost nothing. She's 94. If you can do it to her, you can do it to yourself. So, what's going on with diet? Well, foods high in deuterium are grains and seeds, carbohydrates, processed foods, fruit. No, it's not a health food that we think it is. Not without sunlight, anyway. Eggs, they're a great food, but they are part of the reproductive cycle. I think they're great, brilliant food, particularly the yolks that we were told always not to eat. So I sort of ease back on them in the winter. And starchy vegetables. So what are these deuterium-loaded diets? Well, any high-carb diet. I'm not really just knocking on vegans. But the standard diets, they're full of carbs. The vegetarian diets, they're often based on grains and pulses, lots of veg, root veg. Vegan diets, well, you know, it's all that really, isn't it? It's yeah. So, especially in the north, in the winter, without enough sunlight to deplete it, this is what's going wrong with my friends in Skelmersdale. Among subtler things, you know, other kind of energies, but the deuterium is obvious. The diet that they eat is suicidal in the north. If you're in the sun, you can get away with it. So what's actually low in deuterium? All the things that you've been told are probably not so great for you, apart from people kind of are onto the fish thing. But small wild-caught fish, animals that have eaten their natural diet, not the factory-farmed animals. We're all against that. The natural fat, animal fats, butter, yes, all the saturated fats, they're fantastic. They create deuterium-depleted water in the cell. Hydrating, think a camel hump. It's not full of water, it's full of fat. This is how they hydrate themselves. Bone broth, stock, this heals the gut beautifully. And leafy green veg. Everybody knows that's brilliant for you, right? Well, yeah, maybe not. You don't actually need it. You honestly don't need it. I've been 100% carnivore for ages. I've eaten nothing but meat, fish, egg yolks, saturated fat, butter, all animal fats. It's blown me away what it does. And when I go through the different groups, it's not like I've just discovered this from 5 minutes Googling. It was decades of breaking dogma and really looking at what is actually true about diet. So leafy green veg, that's great. Is it? Yeah, a lot of people get away with it fine, but is it necessary? No, it's not necessary. The problems with plants, they don't have teeth or claws. They have poisons to protect themselves. They contain lectins, glutens, salicylates, oxalates, and fiber. Fiber's supposed to be a good thing. It's really not. It's not. When you get people, there was a great study. Oh, well, we'll come on to fiber in a bit. Anyway, all the nutrients in veg are battling with the anti-nutrients. They don't want to be eaten. The fiber causes almost all of the problems it's supposed to cure. And there are studies now that show this. It's funny. They got a load of constipated people. It's on PubMed. You can look at all this up scientifically. And they did this study where I think there were 64 people and seeing if taking fibre away from their diets and how awful it would be for them. Well, actually, it cured all of them. It cured all of them. There's a period of readjustment where you freak out because the dogma is there again. We're convinced that we need it, but we don't. It's like an addiction. Also, Klebsiella activation. If anybody's got anything autoimmune here and joint pain, something like that, if you eat a Mars bar, it's not going to hurt you as much as a load of green veg, because it carries that starch further down and activates the Klebsiella bacteria. It's just another thing that I put in here. It's not really for this talk so much, but this is what kicks off a lot of autoimmunity, and people are not seeing this with vegetables. There's no proof that veg are necessary. If you really look at it, there isn't. There's no proof that they're necessary. It's just blind dogma. If you really look, there's nothing. 5 a day, complete con, and 10. I have a great friend, a dentist, and she saw them trying to bring this 10 in, and she just went, that's it. That's my job secured forever. Because she says she never sees such bad teeth as in vegans. There we go. So, depleting the deuterium. Sunlight, grounding, cold thermogenesis. It's not just about diet. If you're in the sun, you can eat fruit. It's very simple. If you take it off the tree and you're otherwise healthy, this depletes the deuterium. It's fine if you take it off the tree. If you're buying it in Tesco's in the middle of the winter, it's causing tremendous confusion in the body, and it will be upping the deuterium. But people who get cancer, they go, I need more fruit and veg. You don't. That's probably the last thing you need. People are getting better in the short term with juicing and things like that, but that's another thing. It's not sustainable long term. Cold thermogenesis, getting in baths, getting in cold baths, cold showers, very, very simple. Get out in the cold, wear fewer clothes, turn the central heating down. Feel the seasons. It's just about ancestral disconnects on a consciousness level or a physical level. You can see how it all ties in. Funny talking about this in a talk about awakening, but to me this is it. This is it. Deuterium depleted water. Graham's got some here. He's got some in his pocket. I've never seen it before. It's been used by the cancer researchers to bring the deuterium level down in bodies and fixing cancer. Now, I don't use it. I don't feel I need to. But if I had pancreatic cancer, yes, I'd be downing that all the time. Avoid artificial light and EMFs. This is huge. It triggers a load of problems, but among them is it increases deuterium and also makes it almost impossible for the body to deplete deuterium unless you're doing an awful lot of other things right. Honestly, wearing some orange shades like Graham's got on there, it probably does more good than eating the right foods to cut the blue light out at night and get the circadian biology. We never saw artificial light at night. So what does this business about deuterium really teach us? It's just simple. It teaches us to eat seasonally. Only eat fruit and veg if you live where they grow. And, you know, not if you're healing the gut. Really coming back to bone broths and meats and whatever heals the gut quicker than anything else. All the leaky guts we've got from years on Warburton's bread and muesli. It teaches you that almost everything you've been taught about diet is nonsense. Everything. You know, the food pyramid, the what's this silly thing we got here? The eat well plate. Appalling. Absolute nonsense. Nature always knew best. It's all about diet. Ignore all the diet gurus. Don't listen to anybody talking about veganism. Don't listen to me talking about 100% carnivore. Just look at what the planet would do. It's very simple. Man's false beliefs stand between himself, his health, and his awakening. They do. Okay, meat myths. Yes, it does have everything you need. Absolutely everything. You can eat carnivorous. You can eat steak and butter all day, and you'll be absolutely fine. You will. In fact, you'll be better than fine. It's amazing the healing that happens when people have the bottle to go for this. And the people who have the bottle to go for this are some of the most educated people. They've been through everything else. The healing things I've seen on this, lots of stuff online, people I work with, a Facebook group that I have. It's the easiest food to digest. It heals the gut. Vitamin C is not needed. Why did the Inuit not die of scurvy? They didn't take in vitamin C. But the polar explorers did because they packed rice and beans. So they died of scurvy. It is actually the safest food to eat. If you're talking about elimination diets, people, oh, drop this out, drop this. Just go back to meat. Just go back to meat, fish and eggs, for preferably meat and fish, actually. Some people react to egg whites particularly. Take it back for 30 days. See what happens. It's the safest food to eat, especially in the north, in the winter. depletes deuterium. It'd blow you away, really. And staying lean on it, it's great. You can stuff your face, nothing ever happens. But meat's so unhealthy. No, it's not. You look at all the studies done on meat, and they're all half-assed anyway. But they're done on McDonald's and Diet Coke eaters, not Inuit and Maasai. You know, you eat a natural animal that's been eating what it's supposed to eat. It's absolutely fine. These people have none of these chronic diseases. The Inuit did as soon as they brought the bread up, and it was quick because they're not depleting that deuterium. They're in the cold. It's not like the Maasai, who could probably get away with, well, the neighbouring tribe, the Hadza. Everybody's obsessed with gut biome. So the Hadza tribe in Tanzania, oh, we need to have all gut biome because it's so complicated. It's so diverse, like the Hadza. So people are going out there and getting their gut biome. They come back here and it goes back to normal. Have to have all this fibre to create it. No, they're fine where they are. They're good. They're doing what they're doing. But you don't need all that gut biome. Nobody understands the microbiome. However much they pretend to be an expert, nobody understands it. Nobody understands what's going on. So just ignore that stuff. Okay, you're healing it up and you get a simplified gut biome when you just eat meat, but that's all you need. Doesn't matter. So it's funny how all the problems blamed on meat and saturated fats vanish when all you eat is meat and saturated fats. This came from my friend Amy Van Oosten. She's great. She has loads of groups and, loads of people in her group on Facebook. Very interesting lady. Does a lot of diet courses for people and has a lot of clients. And she was very low carb with the green veg for ages. You see the improvements in her, and she was pretty well. But you see a before and after when she was incredibly healthy, which would have been anybody's after. You see her when she dropped the last of the veg out. It's extraordinary. Looks amazing. So, a lot of these spiritual thing, back to the spiritual thing, they get stuck on Ayurveda. How are we doing for time? Cool. We get stuck on Ayurveda a lot when we're spiritual. A lot of the Hindu type thing, the vegetarian thing. And so then they've adopted Ayurveda and thinking, oh, well, you know, this Ayurvedic food, and look at this Vata, Pitta and Kapha template that they have for the body types. And we must eat nourishing, wholesome lentil soups and all of this that's ripping their guts to bits. What does Ayurveda really say if you look at the old text? It says, for the protection and nourishment of the body, no other food item is better than meat. That's the Charak Samhita. Brilliant. And the meat of freshly killed animals is like Amrit, the ultimate life-giving fluid that sustains the divine. Bhava Prakash. It's so misinterpreted in the West. My son went out to Kerala for some Ayurvedic treatment. And in this country, it's all, in Skelmersdale, you'll get sort of horrible, thin, watery paya soup, it's called, made with lentils and water. It's awful. And you get massages and all the other Ayurvedic treatments. But in Kerala, he said, well, my dad had arthritis. You know, he had this really inflammatory arthritis. What would you have done for him? They went, well, we'd have had bone broths, we'd have had, given very fatty meats, lots of ghee, connective tissue, brains. He was blown away, because he didn't know that this is really what the Vaidyas know. They always have known about this. Every culture's known about it, that it resets the gut. It's the same with Natasha Campbell-McBride's GAPS diet. This is beautiful. She's fixed so many people. She's a neurosurgeon whose son had autism. And she decided that she was going to fix him. So she looked at the old traditional things and got him on zero carb, and the gut heals, and his autism reversed. And now most of the research, they thought she was mad at the time, but now the research is there, and everybody's looking for the gut connection. All the researchers all over the world, you look at what they're doing with autism, and it's the gut connection. And it's getting the carbs out, getting very, very low into a ketogenic diet. Ketogenic means that the body's now running on ketones and it burns fat very efficiently. It's not running on glucose anymore. And this creates a very anti-inflammatory state. And this is also ties in with the depleting of deuterium. So this was an interesting one I saw the other day, because people say, oh, well, it's a fad diet. It's an experiment. It's just, it'll pass. But human history, what's important to note is that the high-carb diet is the experiment. We've only been fed this nonsense since the 40s and 50s. We have to eat all of these grains. We have to eat fibre. And it's nonsense. If you see the problems that everybody has, there's a couple of docs around where I live, and Joanne McCormack and David Unwin, and they've started doing this with their patients. They've cottoned on themselves from the health benefits they found themselves, and they've gone completely against the food pyramids. And they're lovely. I've met them when I did some talks with them, and honestly, their success rate is amazing. The diabetics are throwing all their meds in the bin, and very quickly, type 2 diabetes, I'll make that distinction, is very, very easy to reverse. It's not difficult at all. But you go to hospital and they're telling you to eat this, that. You know, you've got to have this whole grain, you've got to eat your muesli, you've got to, and it's destroying people, totally destroying people. Whereas here we go. So why should someone be worried about a low-carb diet when the experiment is the high-carb diet? It really is, and it's an experiment that's gone horribly wrong. It happened to do with Ansel Keys in the States in the 70s, particularly when this came. I think it was 60s, 70s. I forget, but he was paid by the government to find out whether the epidemic of heart disease was to do with sugars or to do with fats, and I think he was pretty much paid off by the sugar industry, and all those £500 Americans have got him to thank for it, really, because he came up with this lipid hypothesis that cholesterol causes heart disease, and it doesn't. It's somebody said a great one the other day. It was cholesterol causes heart disease in the same way as paramedics cause car crashes. They're there as a marker, but you know they're mopping up after the fact. It's nonsense. So, mind control, what's happening here? Does anybody know why cornflakes were invented? They were invented to stop you wanking. Yeah. Kellogg, he had a bit of a problem, I think, old Kellogg, with his sexuality. He was a bit repressed, and he never actually consummated his marriage. And he realised that if you fed people this crap, it would take their libido down, because it messes about with your hormones so badly. And so they become, you know, it's been widely known in spiritual groups. You eat vegetarian stuff, it takes your libido down. When the gut's wrecked, it's also very difficult to bring it back, because then people think that they react to meat and they react badly. So what's going on here with the mind control? Maybe in all these cultures, these sort of spiritual and religious movements that advocate this kind of diet. Well, I remember I didn't think too well on it. When I went for the vegan thing, the raw vegan thing, eventually I got to a stage where I just really didn't even know which room I was in. And that was when I finally figured it out. And I had, I made the decision, that said, I'm just going to eat fish. I just ate fish for a week, nothing else. And the mind just fixed itself. The brain came back online. It's DHA. Our brains don't work without it. And with cornflakes, you're getting nothing on it. And then what do they pour on? Pasteurized semi-skim milk and some more sugar. It's insane. The sunshine breakfast. My arse. But it's the same for all. It's the same for that horrible chipboard muesli that you buy down at the health food shop. You know, there's very little in a health food shop that is actually healthy. You know, it's a whole load of grains and crap and whatever. You know, you can maybe get some MSM to put some sulfur back into your joints if you've got osteoarthritis, as long as you don't eat anything they actually sell there. These veggie burgers and stuff like that. I mean, veggie burgers, why? Somebody made a point on my Facebook group the other day, veggie burgers. Like, why are vegans always trying to create meat? We don't make broccoli out of steak. We don't crave veg so that we'll make like a liver turnip or something. And it's always been the same. The meat has been the most celebrated thing, hasn't it? Every culture has celebrated it more. They don't celebrate when they bring back a sweet potato or a yam or something. They celebrate when they bring back a kill. And that's because they know. They're in touch with nature. They know. I mean, even in the Bible, they didn't, when the prodigal son came back, they didn't slaughter the fatted turnip, did they? It was, they knew what was good for the body. And fats as well. So now we're left with the moral issue. This is a big one for me because I never really, I was aware of it, but I was a bit of a selfish bugger, and I never really took that moral issue to be particularly seriously. I was aware that I was probably killing a load of animals every time I strayed from the vegetarian path and added some chicken uselessly to my rice and dal. but fat-free chicken as well, probably, knowing me back then. But actually, what's happening here? I mean, look, how many animals are displaced by these massive plantations of grain and soy? The habitat's ruined, the soil totally depleted of its nutrients, forests cut down, indigenous people, you know, they're trashed by a lot of it and exploited. And then when it comes to the harvest time, how do you imagine the ground nesting birds and mice are going to cope with those combine harvesters? They're chewed up horrendously. And deer, you know, there's deer get chewed up, all kinds of things get chewed up in these combine harvesters. And is that really much of a compassionate diet? I don't think so. I understand the principle, but I came across a vegan called Leah Keith, ex-vegan, who came across the same thing, had a horrible autoimmune condition, eventually had to eat a load of meat and fat. She did a book called The Vegetarian Myth. It's worth reading for any vegetarian. And she pointed out that it really is no good for your body and it's no good for the planet. It's also, and then vegans will say, okay, it's all being fed to the factory animals that you're eating. Well, I don't eat factory animals. I eat animals that have eaten what they're supposed to eat. I go to the local farm and you find an animal that's been treated beautifully and it's eating the grass. But I sincerely believe that 100% carnivore diet, if you pick your meat right and you eat wild-caught fish, yes, I know nothing's sustainable, the oceans are being raped, and yes, they are. But there is no diet without a footprint. And I think eating half a cow a year or a cow and a load of fish is probably far less of a footprint than eating quinoa and grains and stuff like that. It's also a hell of a lot less of a footprint on your body and on your mind and on your happiness, you know. The amount of depression and whatever that comes from this that totally heals up when the gut heals up. The connection with the gut is huge. All health begins in the gut. So, it's funny, I heard something else, that somebody posted something today about vegans being cannibals, because when they go into the vegan thing, you often get that initial high as the body mops up some of the bad cells, but then it starts eating the good cells too. So basically they get the protein from their own muscle mass, and I've experienced this. I ended up 9 stone or whatever at 5'10", and it was not good. It really wasn't. Well, I ended up at 10 stone, but it didn't get me lean. But then finding a ketogenic diet and doing cold thermogenesis. Anybody wants to get really lean, cold thermogenesis, getting cold baths. Wow, that really burns the fat. Counterintuitive, but it does. So should everyone eat just meat? No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying try it for 30 days if you've got any health issues, particularly in the winter, particularly up here in the north of England. You will be absolutely amazed at what will happen to the body. I've got this Facebook group I've got where I started it just to help like 10 friends, and now I think there's like 850 people a month later. It's amazing, and some of the great docs on there, fantastic people, and some of the success stories are absolutely extraordinary. And but do you have to do it all the time? No. I mean, the people got dragged into it by their partners and whatever, and they were pretty healthy already. They didn't think they had anything to fix, and they're saying, wow, we can't believe what's been fixed here. So no, berries perhaps in season for polyphenols. There's stuff to do with something that I'll start blabbering now with, to do with electron transport and blah-de-blah that Graham understands and I don't, so I'm going to shut up before he throws something at me. It is totally safe. It really is. It's totally safe. There was nothing ever wrong with it. The studies are... just look at the Inuit and the Maasai. Look at our ancestral heritage. Don't listen to diet gurus. It's all nonsense. It's not unholy or unspiritual. It isn't. It's just electrons. It's just food. And nobody likes suffering. I'm more against factory farming, I would say, than a vegan is. But I know that veganism isn't the answer. Yes, there's too many people on the planet. Maybe we need to start eating insects or something. Fine. There are too many to feed on this, what it is basically an elitist diet. I know it is. Grass-fed meat and wild-caught fish. Not everybody can eat like this. It's very useful for elimination diets if chronically ill. It's the one you take it back to. Don't take it back to rice and broccoli. You know, take it back to meat. All food ages and kills you. If you can't be a breatharian, I mean, there are. I believe there are. I believe there are people who don't eat. You know, there's loads of cases of it. And all food kills you. But if you can't be, well, just go for the minimum deuterium in your food, so your body can clear it. You don't have to go total carnivore or anything. Just Listen to your intuition. This is the main thing, is getting our intuition back, rather than, I read in the Daily Mail today, scientists say that Benecol lowers your cholesterol. Jesus, you know. Benecol, come on. I mean, even lowering the cholesterol is increasing your risk. Cholesterol's there for a reason. It's protective. My mum had a stroke in 96 when she was on statins. Now I got her off those and gone on a really high meat, low-fat diet. We cured cancer. Her LDL cholesterol is sky high, and thank God for that. They always warn her about it in the surgery, and I go, excellent. Because they don't test for particle size. They don't even understand the LDL cholesterol. So, all food ages and kills you. So just, use your intuition. Eat locally, eat seasonally. I'd say avoid grains. I will. I think that's the only thing I kind of put my foot down on. If anyone's eating grains, God's sake, cut them out. Give it a go, even if you're still on the sweet potatoes. But, try it for 30 days. You might not go back. You just never know. So, all of nature's controlled by circadian cycles. It's not to do with food, it's to do with light. And when you understand light, you understand food. What will the season give you? Where you are. What's your state of health? Quite often we have to go that far back because we've got so many digestive issues, so many problems, that we have to go back a step and maybe get more strict. But totally safe to go all meat. And that really, it's easy to digest. It's the cellular clocks are set via receptors in the suprachiasmatic nucleus in the hypothalamus, but they're also in the skin. So what goes into our eyes, all the iPads, all the televisions, this is something I should have really spent the whole talk on, because it's much more important. But I just did this because it's an evening of blowing up dogmas, and there's so many about diet. There aren't about iPads. If we were taught by some guru that it's really good to stare into an iPad, all night, and then I come along and say, don't stare at blue light, you go, how dare you? But because it's easy, oh, that's interesting, they go, because there's no dogma built up about it. But there's so much about diet, it's very difficult to persuade people. Yes, it is okay to have 2 ribeye steaks a day covered in butter and a load of eggs. You'll be fine. You'll get lean and your diseases will clear up. Some you didn't even know you had. But, hey, it's all about light, once you understand about light. So the artificial blue light from all of this, it doesn't just disrupt the cellular clocks, it increases the deuterium, and it's once you're in this chaos, somebody in a high-rise flat in Manchester, and they're staring at their screen all night, and they're eating pizza. It's an absolute recipe. I wonder how human bodies don't all have cancer and autoimmunity right now with how we live. It's not a surprise to me that there is a chronic disease problem. It's a surprise that anyone's avoided it. The cancer con. Nixon's war on cancer. No cure yet since 1971. Isn't that suspicious? Surely with our brains we'd have figured it out. Well, yes, loads of people have figured it out. It's just that the drug companies have a hold on it. The cancer charities con. I play drums. If I get asked to do a cancer charity, I won't do it. I've done a couple of Macmillan because they're there, they mop up the problems that are caused by I wouldn't say the doctors. Doctors are good guys. My mum's oncologist is really funny watching his ideas come around. I go in there now, he asks me questions, except he keeps focusing on the cannabis oil. And because they're always looking for a cure for something. It's not. It's getting the whole situation right, your environment right, and then the body heals itself. It's a 300 billion per year business. They don't want to let it go, and that's not even counting the cast-off cancer drugs that they throw at the poor arthritics in the most useless department ever in hospitals, which is rheumatology. Preposterous. They don't know what causes arthritis, and they can't cure it. What a great profession. I mean, how upsetting must that be, day in, day out, to never cure anybody? It's not their fault. They've been taught this. But when they get a problem themselves, then they look outside it. It's not a genetic problem, cancer. It's a mitochondrial problem. And when you look at it that way, it fixes itself. I've seen it in my mum. I was actually surprised because I also had the dogma, oh, you can't cure cancer. Well, yeah, you can. The body can. Not me. I can't cure it. But my body can if I get it. We all have cancer cells. We fight them all the time. We just bring that system back online by taking away all the things that stop you. The high-carb diets, the artificial light, the blah, blah, blah. You get the picture. So Jack Kruse, he's great. He's become a mate, actually. I think he's quite possibly one of the finest minds on the planet at the moment. A lot of people think he's nuts, but I think less and less are, because if you look back at what he was saying 10 years ago, so many people are catching on to it now. And so it's worth listening to him now. That's why I brought this deuterium thing out, because it's actually really quite new when related to diet and all of this. So he's bringing out all this knowledge about deuterium. Now, I would say really get onto his interviews, listen to him on the webs, on his webcam, his podcasts on the web. He's a bit more difficult to read. I met Graham when he came to one of my Ancestral health talks, and there he was with his orange shades. I thought, this guy knows what he's on about. And I chatted to him afterwards, and he said, I've really studied Jack Kruse. I've been through everything. And he actually understands it, and I don't. I understand enough to figure out what I did to myself with my body and how I brought it back online. But he says you don't need to understand it. If you're a skeptic, look into the science enough to convince yourself. I looked into the science to figure out how I'd done what I'd already done. But by listening to my intuition, really, and looking at ancestral health. But like he says, be like the lion and the hippo. But a really important thing that he says, I think, is this factor X thing. You have to be so much more careful. The diets that our parents and grandparents stayed healthy on, because you go, oh, so-and-so's 90 and they eat bread all their life. Yeah, but how is the environment when they were growing up? Apart from the obvious pesticides and stuff, you know, that there's so much of now, it's not just that. It's that there's all the artificial light, the EMFs. It's so disruptive that if we eat something short of optimally, particularly in the winter in the north, we're screwed. We really are. And that's what's going on. That's why this huge disease thing's coming up. And that's why they don't understand it. And that's why they don't cure it. They don't, you know, you go into hospital, you're doomed. You're under blue light, you're under EMFs all the time. So, yeah, convention says eat whole grains, low fat, exercise in gyms. Yeah, let's pound away doing chronic cardio with some headphones in, probably with your phone on, so it's piling all that in as well. You're probably under artificial light all the time. You're inside, and then you go and you think you've earned a croissant or something. Oh, let's go and have breakfast. But it's insane when you see the hormonal and mitochondrial disruption that happens with this. Yeah, let's all use LED bulbs because they save on the environment. But the amount of blue that they pump out at night, and we're living under this light. We just have candles now at home. We've even got an orange screen over the telly. Like Zach came around to my house today, he goes, what's wrong with your telly? But, you know, the kids have started sleeping way better. There's no arguments at bedtimes. If you take this, because the last thing was the telly. We've got rid of the lights. We've got orange lights upstairs, so people are knocking on our door for services. It looks a bit weird. But honestly, it's fantastic that something so simple can suddenly rearrange the kids. The kids are fine now. They go to bed. They don't argue. They sleep well. You've taken that blue light out at night. It hasn't told them that it's morning. Tells you to take statins too. Stop drinking and smoking. Yeah, statins are total con. Stop drinking and smoking. Nobody's pretending they're good. But really, they're probably the least of most people's worries. I remember Jack saying to me, I've got no problem with you smoking as long as you do it in the sun. And it's not the main problem. People who are eating carbs all the time is probably worse than, and being under blue light's worse than the smoking. Let's go get a smart meter. Let's really pump ourselves full of EMFs. Just if you've got one, take a sledgehammer to it. If they try and fit one, bloke came around fitting them in my street. I said to him, is that for our house? Because we're in a rental house at the moment. And he said, no. I said, oh, thank God for that, because I don't want that. He said, I don't blame you. This is the bloke fitting. Oh, and here comes 5G. That's a talk on its own. You know, when 5G comes, I think the cancer clusters around these masts are going to be really quite obvious. So, simple. The ideal day. How do you put all this together? It's gratitude. I think it's the only spiritual practice you need. I think it's just, you know, how do you appreciate everything that you go in your life? Just appreciate it. It's cool. Go out in the morning sunlight. It's important to get that in for the melatonin production, for sleep. Hurrying through this now because I know I'm getting to my time. But get the light in your eyes. It's just as important as getting the blue light out of your eyes at night as it is getting, you know, to get the decent blue light in your eyes from the sun in the morning. Even if it's cloudy, get out. Get your feet on the ground. Barefoot. Doesn't matter if it's raining or hailing. It's great. Take your top off. Get as naked as possible. Get the sun on your bits, you know? Important. Shower. Finish up with 5 minutes of cold.
Actually, Phil, I do that now. I've done that. Yeah, I have done that. But shower thing with a cold shower at the end is brilliant.
Yeah, it is.
You just feel so much.
It does. Your body knows what's going on, doesn't it? Yeah, it's brilliant. That's not a stooge.
I do it gradually. I don't just go whoosh.
That's the best way to do it. Yeah, to start. Yeah.
I just do it gradually, and then it's so exhilarating.
Yeah.
Talking about blue light, being out in the sunshine, we don't want the blue light at night, but looking at the blue sky is actually healing to us.
Sure.
Soak up as much of that blue light.
Absolutely.
Into your eyes,
Yeah, definitely. You know, and then midday sun without burning. It's sunscreen, appalling, not getting into that. Just no sunscreen or sunglasses. Get it into your eyes, get it into your skin. Eat when you're hungry and when it's light. Intermittent fasting can promote autophagy healing. Get up every 20 minutes. You've got a sedentary thing. Run around. Blue blocking glasses for screens. Use candles. Turn off Wi-Fi and lights. Get Iris. Everybody's got Flux on their computer, but it doesn't deal with flicker. Get Iris. Iris Tech. Deal with the flicker as well. Bed by 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, no phones by the bed, no bathroom light. Very, very simple, very simple. Trick your body into thinking it's back in the wild. So, there we go. I've got a Facebook group. Check it out if you like. It's not all about meat eating. The and beyond is my favourite bit. There's some incredible people on there. Some of the most. Jack Kruse is on there a lot. There's Sean Baker. Anyway, go check it out. There's some great docs on there who really know what's going on, and some very funny people. And it's very irreverent. There's no sort of wallflowers on there, and if they do, they probably leave. They get offended by us talking about nonsense all the time. It's a cool group. This was my book that I did about all of this, how I got well, the story of the beginning to end of it, really. There's quite a lot about awakenings in there too, and how this relates. It was the best thing that ever happened to me. This is only on Kindle. I haven't got this with me today. Okay, I've only put this up because I grabbed them on the way. That's all I got printed. This is my novel. It's cool. There's awakenings. There's India travel. There's past lives. There's all sorts of nonsense that doesn't even exist. But it's also quite autobiographical. But it's a cool story. So I've got some here. So buy one. So that's me. What do? Skype consultations. If anybody knows anybody who I can, if you know someone who's real ill, just put me in their house. I'll go and sort the light out. I'll go and take them shopping. We'll have fun, and they will be blown away. The things that you can heal when you understand about this. Do some Skype stuff, talks and presentations, sure, day courses for businesses, whatever. If anyone wants to chat about non-duality or awakening, I'm always happy with that. But I'm going to hand over to Zach for that one because he's cool and he'll give me a slap for even using those terms. So that's where I am at pureactivity.net. Come and hang out and drop me a line. Join the Facebook group, and here's Zach's book, which is beautiful too. So thank you so much for listening, and I'm gonna. Well, we'll take a break, and I'll hand over to Zach. Yay! And I'm taking a sunset.
Right. So before I get anybody shout at me and say, "Can you hear me? Can everybody hear me?" Excellent. So I've got to follow up on that, which is it's going to be a bit hard. My name is Zahir Khan. I'm a bit of a double act with Phil, and my part of this is I talk about spiritual awakenings and enlightenment and other such things. So you're probably wondering why this guy sitting on stage with a pair of NMDs is going to talk about this stuff and what qualifies me to talk about this. So I'll tell you a bit of a story. As to how I started doing all of this stuff and how I've ended up on a stage with you guys. I'm going to move over this way. Like I said, my name's Zahir Khan. At the age of 23, I joined a Sufi school of the Qadri order. Spent 8 years in some complete craziness. It's in the book, if you want to buy the book, with a Sufi who was related to a man called Khwaja Naqibullah Shah Sahib, who was one of the kind of like the biggest Sufi teachers in the Indian subcontinent. So I followed this guy around for 8 years. I'd heard about this thing called Enlightenment, and because I was 23 years old, I just lost my father and I was depressed, and the woman of my dreams had walked out. I thought that if I got enlightened, it would be the cure-all to everything that I ever wanted. During this 8-year period, I kind of pretty much traveled from here to Pakistan, all over the country, following an Asian guy with a big long beard and long hair, which obviously qualified him to be a teacher. because back then, if you had big long hair and a big white beard, you were obviously realised. So I spent 8 years with this guy, and it culminates to a trip to Pakistan where I went to a festival called the Urs, which is a celebration of the life of a saint, and on the day that they pass, they believe it's kind of translates to wedding ceremony. It's when the lover reunites with their beloved. So throughout this whole night, I whirled. No doubt you guys have seen Rumi in the Whirling Dervishes. Well, our school used to whirl. So all night I whirled until about 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. I whirled to such an extent that I realised I couldn't figure this thing out. So I screamed, and the next thing I know, I was on a heap on the floor, and one of the senior students turned around to me and said, "Lala, where are you?" Which basically meant, well, you know, Lala is a term of endearment. He's like, "Where are you?" And I remember just saying, "I'm here." And that was it. So I wake up the next day after about an hour or two's worth of sleep, and I've got guys kissing my hand and believing that I've experienced some spiritual stuff. All I know is that I may have made a complete prick of myself. So I'm cool with guys kissing my hand, because it basically meant when the langar happened, which is when you have the ceremonial food, I got lots of food. So I come back to England, and I decide I don't really want to be involved with these people anymore. There was no desire now to sit around with a bunch of Sufis. However, when I'd sat with my original teacher, and I used the term teacher loosely because he was a fake, but he was a fake who was actually real. So I'll leave you to ponder that particular one. So when I've come back, I've decided, look, I don't want anything to do with this stuff. And then the story started coming out, that this man became realised to such an extent that he couldn't handle it. I then kind of woke up and smelled the coffee and realised that this man who I'd followed for 8 years was a sexual predator, was a financial predator, and I'd seen friends lose their possessions, their wives, and certain young men had been sexually abused. So my introduction on the spiritual journey was probably the best possible introduction I could have ever had. You know, your best friend loses his wife, your best mate gets fiddled with, and you know, your other mate loses a load of money. So now I'm stuck, because there was a saying I'd heard, and it said, if you do not take a guide, the devil is your guide. So now I'm thinking, coming from a traditional Muslim background, I thought, oh well, great, this basically means that if I don't get a guide, I'm going to die a disbeliever. Like, so, you know, if you listen to these ISIS videos, like one of you lot, and I didn't really want that. So what happens, I got up to Scotland, and as every great story, you know, that starts, there's always a girl involved. So there was this Scottish lass, and I thought, well, look, I've got to get out of Coventry, why not, I'll just go up to Scotland. So I sat in a flat for 3 months, and it wasn't done by design. I didn't have a DVD player, I didn't have like a TV or anything. So I started asking these fundamental questions like, well, what's it all about? Why am I doing this? Why have I been following this like bearded chap for 8 years only to find out that the guy was a complete fake? What the hell is it all about? So around that time I started talking to different speakers from different traditions, so non-duality speakers, Buddhists, whatever will come in front of me. I've got half hour of internet time at the local library, so I go there, I try to read stuff, and realise that I'm pretty fucked, because I want this to come realisation, I don't have a teacher, and I've got no answers, I'm nowhere closer. I then started speaking to a gentleman called Tony Parsons, who some of you may know, who's a non-duality guy. So I ring him one Sunday, I top my phone up by £5, I ring this kind of on a Sunday, and I kind of go, what's it all about? To which he turns around and goes, if you think realisation is going to improve your life, let me tell you it isn't. So I just thought, thanks, that really helped. So for about half hour, he pulls me apart, and then at the end, like, you know, like in every great story, he just turns and goes, you know, if you want to ring me again, please do. So the following Sunday, I find myself ringing this guy again and asking him questions, and he just goes on. At the end of my £5 credit, I put the phone down, and he goes, I'll talk to you again. So then one day I'm sitting there and I see an ironing board. I'm looking at the ironing board, and as I see this ironing board, you know, to really kind of de-emphasize the mystical side of it, I wake up. So I'll kind of, if I can be bothered, explain what waking up basically means. So I wake up, I go down to London, I share my thoughts that I talk and everything, and I come back up and I'm like, oh, I'm enlightened now. How cool is that? My life's going to be absolutely brilliant. A couple of months later, it disappears. So I wake up one morning and my enlightenment's gone. So what do I do now? So I start seeking all over again. I then have another conversation with Mr. Parsons, and I have another awakening, and this time it lasts for 2 whole months. So for 2 whole months, I'm in this blissed out state. Life is wonderful. You know, if I want money, it appears. If I want food, it appears. Whatever I want, it just, in a sense, appears. I wake up one morning, it's gone again. So, you know, I'm getting quite good at getting this enlightenment thing and losing it again. Around this time, you know, I start seeking like crazy, and I hear of a young man who went to the holy city of Medina and then came back and shaved his beard off. straight away I just know this guy knows. So I go to see this guy, and imagine, if you will, a terraced house in Leicester with a bunch of guys listening to rap music and MTV blaring, and a Master of the Universe sitting there next to MTV going, bro, you need to listen to this tune. So I'm sitting there, and the guy's saying, bro, you need to listen to this tune and everything. And then 3 days later, sitting there, I realise that every faith, every religion, every spiritual approach, every self-help guru has all been saying the same thing, and bang, the idea of me dies. And that's it. 3 months later, I go past the Glasgow Theosophical Society. I walk in there, and I kind of go, I'd like to do some talks. And they were like, what about? To which I said, non-duality and Sufism. To which the man who was talking to me just kind of went, we'll have some of that. Like, he was going to buy some fruit. So I did some talks, lasted the summer. They were really good. People turned up. I have no idea what I said. I don't know what they heard. But they were good. And every Wednesday, it's like, I'll see you around. And then I decided I don't really want to do this stuff anymore. So I go back, and I get the life I always wanted. So shopping trips to House of Fraser's, £200 bottles of Creed, and a superficial lifestyle. And it was great. And it was brilliant, as a matter of fact. 3 years ago, all of a sudden I'm lying there in bed. I'm meant to be starting this great IT job, and I've realised I can't do it anymore. I can't really buy into this whole thing of go out, get a job, go buy useless crap, and then just pretend you're happy. So I'm lying there in bed, I'm terrified. I then go back to the Theosophical Society, and I ask for my room back. To which I said, well, we can't give you that room, but we can give you the room above it. So I get there every Friday nights for 3 months, nobody shows up and stuff, which, if you know Glasgow, doing a talk on this kind of stuff in Glasgow on a Friday night is probably not the smartest move in the world. But that was 3 years ago, and I'm still here, and now I'm running up and down the country, and I talk to people about this thing called realization. But I've had a dawning realization on me recently as well, that I don't really talk about realization because I really don't know what realization is all about. So what I want to do is have a conversation. If you want to talk back to me, please do. If you want to ask me technical questions, please don't, because I want to answer them, because I'll just say, don't talk to me like that, it's a soundbite. I will probably pull rank on you. I will say things like, I've been interviewed by all these amazing websites, so I must know. And then if the worst comes to the worst, I'll probably pull my skin colour into it and say, I'm an Indian guy talking about realization, which basically means I must know better than you, because I know words like namaste, and you don't. I'll try and keep that bit to a minimum. So what do I actually talk about? I talk about this thing called realization, but I try and talk it from a practical basis. So I would love to talk to you about, like theories and stuff, but I'm really not kind of interested in talking about that. I'd like to talk about it from a practical viewpoint, whereby if you walk out of it, you've got something that you can take away, possibly, that might help you with your relationship, with your money problems, or simple questions like, whatever the fundamental answers in life you're at. I am here to talk, but I am also conscious of the fact that I'm also here to entertain. So those who want to learn will learn, and those who want to be entertained will be entertained as well. So there's a beginning, middle, and end, and I'm sure you'll get something out of it. And if you don't, well, that's your fault. It's like you heard what you wanted to hear. So yeah, that's what I do. The methodology I use, because I'll tell you what I'm going to do now, is part of a very, very traditional methodology found in the Sufi schools of thought, which is storytelling, metaphors. Kim Kardashian may get a mention, because I've bored crowds silly now for the last couple of months with Kim Kardashian, so you might hear that as well. And the whole thing is designed to actually get you to ask the question of yourself as to who you actually are. To somehow kind of, in a sense, stoke a fire under you that you're going to ask the question as to what you actually are. And you may go and see this amazing teacher that can wake you up and give you the answers to everything you've ever sought in life. And that teacher, just to kind of circumvent the process, is actually you. So my job is just to, in a sense, light fires today. Ask you some questions, probably be a bit irreverent, because I learned that word from Phil. I didn't know what it was before, so I thought I might as well chuck it into a talk. And to really just ask you a question as to who you are. I know who I am, which is why I'm sitting on the stage. And that's arrogant of me to say, but hey, I'll say that. The question you should really concern yourself is, who are you? And if you understand who you are, what could you possibly be? What are the possibilities? Because you're in this place, and the slogan is what? The friendly meeting place for the free thinker. So if we look at what's going on in the world right now, the world's pretty fucked, for want of a better word. Everybody seems to be kind of, I have a partner who's a lawyer, and it's incredible. I talk to some really successful people on a daily basis, and I hear the same thing. I did the right thing. I got the degree, I got the job, I got everything I always wanted, and I'm not happy. So all of a sudden, happiness, which an American mystic called Lester Levinson once said was our basic nature, has now become the hardest thing in the world to do. And the reason for that is we've bought into everything, but we've not bought into ourselves. We've not learned to actually think for ourselves. Even our teachers, our gurus, going back to something that Phil said, came over from India in the 60s and taught you concepts that were completely foreign to what you actually were. So it's about discovering that reality that is in your midst, as opposed to let's just jump on a plane and go to India. Because somehow if I go there and I eat lentils and I do, I don't know, Surya Namaskar, and I do some yoga, that somehow is going to make me a better person. Take it from a guy who did all that. It's not. Take it from a guy that the gods that you've put up there and the teachers that you've put up there are actually in it for themselves. They're not in it for you. Because one of the biggest shifts that I had was looking for these answers was when I realized that I actually wanted to go free. Prior to that, I was happy to sit in the company of the teacher and, be of service. I didn't really want to be of service. I actually wanted what that guy knew. What was I there for in the first place? And that set me on a journey where, I had to ask these questions as to why in God's name I was doing this. So you will probably hear me just ask the same question, well, who are you? And what do you want? If you go to see any teacher from any tradition, you go to see anybody, they're going to say, well, who are you? You'll answer with your name. What do you want? Oh, well, I've got this problem. But they're the two questions you need to concern yourself with. It's almost kind of quite subtle. So who are you? What could you possibly be? And what do you want? Why are you sitting in this room? Why are you listening to this guy? I'd understand why you listen to Phil, because at least you got some information. But I'm not planning to give you any information. I'm planning to give you some stories. But I'm planning to actually give you a question. And if you take that question away and have an honest conversation, well then what separation, what difference will there be between you and me? And you'll find there isn't a difference between us. But because of conditioning, the way we are, the way we were brought up, we have this whole idea that something's missing or something's gone wrong. So we end up in places like this. We rail against governments, we rail against, diet, we rail against gurus, we rail against, practices and all this stuff. But these were all clues that you put down so that one day you would remember who you actually were. But then the question again is, who could you possibly be? Do I have to carry on talking now, do I?
Yeah.
Damn God, man.
So have you found out who you are yet?
Yeah, I'm just me. That's a simple question. That's a simple answer. I would like to wax lyrical and kind of say I'm the fount of all knowledge and I'm awareness and all that stuff, but I found a long time ago that these things are great, but they're like, in a sense, spiritual candies. And what it is, after a while, you let it go. I remember talking to a young man once, and he kind of came out, well, this. He goes, well, who are you? I'm just me. But if I'm just me could be answered with an authenticity of what you truly are, it will be something else altogether and stuff. Because what it is, we have all these different faces, we have all these different ways of being, we have ways of acting because that's how spiritual people are meant to act, or that's how I should act because I'm a father, or I'm a mother, or I'm a daughter, I'm a sister and everything. When all of that is seen through, there's an authenticity that has always been there in you. And when you reconnect, which isn't really a reconnection, because going back to something that Phil said, it's a paradox, you see that you're so much more. Then, in a sense, yes, I wrote a book, I call it Falling to the Mystery. You go more and more to the experience of what you are. What does it mean to actually be you? To be human in the truest sense of the word, if you want to use the term humanity, or what could you possibly be? And what you'll find is you'll see more and more of what you are. Then the apparent separation of a subject and an object disappears. You see that there is just this oneness, however it's seen from a practical viewpoint, which is why someone like me would be sitting on a stage here, because if it was all just one and everything was just happening as and how it's happening, then there would be no point to this. But there is a very real point. I remember talking to a Sufi once, and we were talking, and I said, there's nothing happening, it's just this. And he laughed and goes, oh, he just thinks it's just this. So it's about seeing that it is just more than this, but what could more than this be? And that's a journey that, in a sense, has to be experienced, has to be taken, because that's the whole purpose of actually being here, to in a sense, know thyself. But what does it mean to know thyself? Is it just the individual? Is it everything around us? What could it be? And that's a question I can't answer for you. That's a question I can throw at you. Because in a sense, this is kind of like, in a sense, a rhetorical kind of teaching. It's also one which is kind of negative and also positive as well simultaneously, because there are so many different ways of seeing reality. It's like taking a diamond and wanting to only see it with one facet. It's about seeing it through as many different facets as humanly possible. Realizing that there's a beautiful story told in a certain tradition about men who are taken into a room, blindfolded as an elephant, and they touch different parts of the elephant, come out and describe what they felt. One goes, well, it was very thin. One goes, well, it was very fat. One goes, well, it was like really like this and this. When the blindfolds are taken off, which is what realization is, they all realize they're staring at an elephant. That's when we realize we're all looking at the same thing, that we are all the same thing. And then discord can die when you realize that that thing I'm reading about is an opportunity for me to grow, but it's also me. So if we look at all the CDs that are here and everything, we're talking about this new world order and all this stuff. How do we affect change? We realize we are the other. And as we affect change within ourselves, we can change our communities around us, we can change people around us. You know, just by being us, but not in a manipulative way, coming from really, in a sense, love. But not love in a sense that, yes, it's all airy-fairy, as you so beautifully said, it's all love and light. You know, if I had a pound for every time I heard love and light, I'd probably not be sitting up here doing this talk. I'd probably be in Monaco somewhere. But love from a real practical ideal. You know, to go back to that time where a reality with no name, because we now live in a time where there is a name with no reality. It's going back to a simpler, more innocent time in which we realize that the experience that's been spoken of, that this guy is pointing at, is actually me. But then the question comes out again: who could you be? Who's me? What does me do? What is me all about? And the beautiful thing about this is, this thing is open to everybody. So it's not the preserve of some yogi sitting on a hill somewhere. It's not the preserve of someone who's got their chakras right, who's read the right books. There are record numbers of people now waking up to what they actually are. And they're ordinary people. So this reality, in a sense, you know, without sounding conspiratorial or kind of like, I don't know, calling out, that is starting to appear everywhere and anywhere. When I did my talks in Glasgow, the funniest thing was there were very non-spiritual people coming in. And what was interesting about it, they'd all say the same thing: do you understand what I'm talking about? Because there are now people starting to wake up to what's going on, but what's actually going on a real basis. Because if you look at the teachers and the traditions of old, these were very practical people. They were there in the real sense of the word, working within their communities to help things. They started where they actually were. There wasn't Sanskrit, there wasn't scriptures, there wasn't any need of that. Because that's very similar to the Buddhist tradition of I take a boat from one side of the lake to the other, but then I let it go. And already, if we look at it, we have YouTube, we have all these books, we have teachers flying in from all over the world and everything. We have enough answers. Now, Osho said something really amazing, although I don't really rate the guy. He said something really amazing, which was, I don't intend to give you any answers, you have far too many anyway. So we have this plethora of information. We already know what this is all about. It's whether we can take that knowledge and turn it into understanding and turn it into something which is real. But the key to unlock it is actually you. That good hard look at yourself. You know, that point where you kind of go, I know this stuff intellectually, I know what this guy is talking about, it makes perfect sense. However, and this is your dirty little secret for some of you, not all of you, I know it, and I know I can talk about it in dinner parties, and I can pull off a great conversation, but I'm still not it. Which is why sometimes you'll see the scholar will go to the door of a mystic, because a mystic will be living it as an actual experience, which is why then words become irrelevant. All of this stuff becomes relevant. It's just a guy sitting on a stage talking. That's all it is. But if it can be figured that it's just a guy sitting on a stage that's just talking, then everything makes sense. But then what's making sense? And who's it making sense for? Just to jump around with some traditions now. And that's the interesting thing. Because really, where does all of this lead to? You know, we've been talking about diet this evening, we've been talking about light, we've been talking about all these disparate, you know, spiritual traditions, whether it's from Advaita to Buddhism to Sufism, but what are they all pointing to? Where do the great religions of the world, the great holy men, the mystics, the biohackers of today, you know, the scientists of today, what are they all pointing to? What's the thing that's actually being pointed to? What's the thing that we're trying to figure out, that we're trying to get to, so we can have that sense of ease, a sense of relaxation, or that sense of stopping, that, right, it's finished now, this is it. And if this is it, his experience then, or I won't even say it's experience, if this is actually it, what could it actually be? So we then move from a state of seeking into seeing. We start seeing what we actually are. Then it becomes real time, then it becomes alive. So it's about being alive in the truest sense of the word. What does it mean to be happy? What does it mean to be alive? What does it mean to be human? What does it actually mean to be you? Because it's very easy to know all of this stuff, but sometimes we're not asking the fundamental questions of ourselves as to what is it about? Why am I doing this? Why do I do the things I do? Really simple questions which are kind of quite scary to a mind that wants complexity. Somebody once so beautifully put it, if the truth was complicated, we'd all understand it. It's the fact that it's so bloody simple. It's the fact that, you know, it is, as Wei Wu Wei wrote, an open secret. It's actually here. And it liberates and blinds as many people simultaneously, because those who wish to know will find it. There was a very famous Sufi called Bazi Bastami who wrote, "Seekers cannot know this, and yet only seekers get this." And that really messed with my mind for years. What do you mean seekers cannot know this, and yet only seekers get this? And then it was a oh, hold on, you let the statement go. As you let the statement go, you see what you are. So it's a silence, but it's not a silence because there's still somebody registering that silence. So it's the point, there is no somebody registering the silence. So as they say, a drop of water comes into an ocean. As a drop of water falls into the ocean, it has no sense of itself, but realizes it has complete sense. But if it's here in this, I don't know, 3-4 dimension, I don't know what the light workers say, the 5D thing, or I don't know, whatever it is, anything. If it says being aware of the fact that yes, you are the ocean entire, which then goes back to that same question, who could you be? Who could you be without your stories? Who could you be without these limited ideas of you? So it's in a sense almost a call to be human again, to actually fall in love again. There's a really nice poster going around Facebook at the moment, and it's like, do you remember that wild girl? Well, she's still there. Well, do you know that thing you thought you'd forgotten? Well, it's still here. It never went away. It doesn't need to be attained, it's actually still here. And sooner or later, if this is done right, one of you is going to go back and kind of go, well, I would like to see that. And that's when you're going to meet yourself. So the apparent two, the idea of you, and the roles you play will meet that which is real. That thing that is real is eternal, it's complete in its whole. And it's practical in the truest sense of the word, which is why you can have an Indian guy sat under a tree, and a British journalist goes past in the 30s or 40s, and I'm talking about Ramana Maharishi, and yet this journalist goes past, feels a resonance, and fills up 14, 15 volumes of notebooks about what he felt and stuff. It was a very practical reality. It's about going back to that practical reality. Then you've got the answers to all the questions you want. Then you're empowered. Somebody once said to me many, many years ago, in the Indian subcontinent, there's a thing called a taweez, which roughly translates to an amulet. And this teacher said, don't ask for an amulet, become an amulet. So in a sense, become the question and also become the answer. Then you are empowered. So you don't kind of go, well, what would so-and-so do, or what would so-and-so do? You then become brave and you become courageous and you go, well, what would I do? And as you ask the question, what would I do? It's incredible when you'll find your preconceived limits about what you actually are and what you've been led to believe you are aren't actually true. Now that could be applied on a practical level if you really want, in terms of business, work and all that stuff, but it also can be applied on a spiritual level of seeing what you actually really are and realizing that these limits, you know, aren't real. I'm not that guy I was this morning. I probably won't be this guy 5 minutes after this, because there's a process of constant change and yet it's simultaneously constant. And I'm not talking about something esoteric, I'm talking about how you function if you would just stop and have a look. Because everything's designed to make you not want to look. As a matter of fact, I'll go one step further and say that you put these things in place. Because if it's all one consciousness decided to do this, it decided to lose itself. And itself because it's engaged in this cosmic play that it wants to, like in a sense, start, finish, end, cause all these dramas. I mean, you know, I did some dramas trying to find myself, and then the funny thing is I realized, well, I was already here. So that's what I do. You know, I talk about realization. And I talk about things that, like, really should be the only concern for people. Because once you figure this bit out, everything falls into place. But as I've said that, that could be quite arrogant. This is the only thing you should concern yourself. Well, the only thing you should really concern yourself is with you. You know, going back to what Phil said, don't listen to any of these diet gurus. Listen to yourself. There's a theme through this evening, and one of it is that you need to listen to yourself. You need to empower yourself. You need to ask yourself questions, because there's enough people feeding you information. Some of it's right, some of it's wrong. And yes, okay, we don't know what's right, what's wrong. And the safest place, and this is what I found through my personal experience, was when I ran out of teachers, when I ran out of traditions, when I ran out of, you know, old Indian men who had all my answers and stuff and everything, or so I thought, I had to go and see the one person I didn't want to see, and that was me. Because we'll do anything but meet ourselves, because most people are terrified. You know, going back to this whole thing about spiritual awakenings are rare. They are rare for the fact that we will do anything but face ourselves. Because we know that we can lie to other people, but the lies that we're telling ourselves are brutal and stuff, and we would like to keep in those lies and stuff. Lie to other people, it's great, do it. Do you know what I mean? I don't say go for it, but let's be honest, we lie to other people. But we have lied to ourselves. And we've believed those lies to the point where we made them real. You know, thoughts are transient, they move, but it's incredible how we make them into life in the truest sense of the word. And then we go on about thoughts are transient. So even most of the current thinking about spirituality has already been outdated because it's registered in the mind. As it's registered in the mind, guess what? We've already counted it. You know, the one I'm liking at the moment, and I don't know if I can explain this, is mindfulness. I just love that term, mindfulness. I mean, what the fuck does that actually mean? But it's incredible. We're building an entire industry. And a lot of the industry, when it's based in seeking, is based around the mind, about a mind staying in control, an ego keeping you in check, or whatever you want to call it. And again, there's a massive hoo-ha about minds and egos and all of that stuff as well. So it's about letting stuff go. And the more you let it go, and don't let it go in the way that you've been taught to let it go, let it occur naturally and as and how it does, you'll see more and more what you are. Yes?
Do you still use ritual in any?
No. I mean, I come from the Muslim. I come from the Islamic community. Do I still go to kind of like places and do I still pray? Yeah, I do. But the thing is, it's like it's taken on a different meaning. But would I say that I need ritual to actually kind of sustain what I actually am? I think no, not really. What you find is a lot of this stuff is needed until it's not needed. So teachers, books, gurus, even practices and stuff are actually needed. I remember. I think back in about 2005, I was doing these things called vazais, which are spiritual, kind of like in a sense prescriptions. And there were several times during the course of the day where I would completely disappear out. I could completely disappear. I go, wow, this is really, really amazing. Does it hold a candle to what I actually am, what you actually are? No, it doesn't. It's a very, cheap and pale imitation. What I tend to say is like, for example, everyone's heard of Rumi and him whirling around a tree. The original whirling was an ecstatic movement, and it happened completely spontaneously. What happens, and this is where the problem happens, is there's a guy like me sitting there, and he goes, oh, he's whirling around a tree, yeah? And now he's being a bit funny. Now, rather than taking the time out to discover what I am, I go, well, if he did it, let me do it as well. There's a really good story, and this is how easily beliefs and religions have been put together. There's a book called Prometheus Rising. There's a book called Prometheus Rising, by Robert Anton Wilson, and he talks of an incident where there's a man talking to his wife, and he kind of goes, well, I've noticed you cut the edges of the bacon. Is that good for the zero carbs in the bacon thing? I better ask him. But so she cuts the edge of the bacon, and he goes to his wife, why'd you do that? And she goes, I don't know, my mum's always done that. And this is how easy beliefs are made. So they ring the mum up and go, listen, why did you cut the edges of the bacon? She goes, I don't know, your grandma used to do it. So go, okay, let's go see the grandma. So they all turn a mob hand at their grandmas and stuff, and they kind of go, why did you cut the edges of the bacon? She goes, oh, it's quite simple, I had a really small pan. And that's how a lot of this stuff has been started. If you look at some of the greatest religions, I mean, I come from like I said, I come from the Muslim tradition. Now, they go, when the early Muslims started, they were, I think they were known as Sabians, because there was actually a group of people who prayed to the equator 5 times a day. So what they went was, well, people were like, are you Sabians or are you Muslims? And well, oh no, well, to differentiate ourselves, what we'll do is we'll pray towards this direction because they're praying to that direction. So what you'll find is nothing new's ever happened. There's just a reinterpretation of the whole thing. It's like, okay, here's this talk here, okay? Take this down the line 20, 30 years from now, and you can create a religion out of me, if you really want. I saw this happen in real time. I was sitting with a teacher, and he turned around to his students and goes, work, get a job. 3 months later, wow, work, get a job turned into a new religion. And one said, no, what he meant when he said get a job was to work for the school. What you're really saying is I'm too lazy to go and get a job and everything, so I don't really want to face that and do the difficult thing of a 9 to 5. What I really want to do is I want to create this whole thing where I don't have to face myself. So he was like, no, it basically means we must work for the school. It was like, mate, it's nonsensical. He said, get a job. So sometimes a lot of these heads of religion or these holy men were saying stuff that was quite simple. But because we didn't, we can accept the simplicity, and we didn't understand it, like go get a job, or go clean that toilet, or go clean that floor. We created an entire, we created an entire religion around it. So, for example, when I went to Pakistan, I had to clean the floor. Now, you know, here's me, I'm going to give you a spiritual practice. If you really want to wake up, what you do is you clean the floor. Because what will happen is over time you will feel that you're in the now. But the funny thing is somebody's actually going to believe that and actually going to try it, because Zach said it in a talk and stuff. Then add in the fact that, look, there's all these people listening to me. What I'm saying must be right. Because look, they're all listening to me and no one's challenging me on it and stuff. And that's how easily beliefs are created. Because so-and-so said it had to be. And that's what we have to challenge that, which is why we have to challenge everything that happens. Think of it as conducting an experiment on yourself. You know, whereby you're actually looking at a lot of the stuff you do, but rather than getting really engaged in that, because a lot of the self-help industry and a lot of therapy is all about peeling back the layers of the onion and stuff. So, you know, my mummy dropped me on my head at the age of 5. So because she dropped me on the head at 5, that basically means I'm now a narcissist and stuff, and daddy didn't give me scale electrics and stuff, so I've got to go now do this and this and this and this. Instead of doing that and going through every single issue, try to look at the bigger picture. The bigger picture is just this, it's just whatever's happening right now. If you can accept that whatever's happening right now, whatever thought, feeling, emotion is going on right now is the thing that you're looking for, that's it, it's finished. But then we've got a whole industry on that one as well, whereby enlightened people are supposedly these people who sit in this state where they don't feel bliss, they don't feel emotion, they're constantly blissed out. Believe you me, when my cat headbutts me in the morning at 4 o'clock wanting to be fed, I don't feel bliss. I feel hands around throat time, but then I realise my other half would just boot me if I did that. So you do feel emotion, but it's accepting that emotion. But actually feeling that emotion for what it actually is, but also realising that emotion there is actually an invitation as well. Absolutely everything here is designed, if you feel you need to wake up, to actually invite you to wake up. Whether it's the sensations in your body, whether it's illness. Illness is one of the best ways. If you really want to be in the now, dead simple, go stub your toe. If you want to be in the now in a hard way, go sit down cross-legged and go, I'm going to empty my mind. Believe in me, stubbing your toe, you're not going to want to be thinking about anything else. Or as somebody so aptly put to me, at the moment of orgasm, are you really going to be thinking about your wash? And I was like, yeah, bro, that's kind of cool. But I couldn't accept it back then, because guess what? I was in Pakistan getting holy, do you know what I mean? And so when the teacher's son said that, I was like, oh no, this is wrong. We don't talk about things like sex and stuff. But yeah, so practices are needed till they're not needed. Better still, why do you need them? Why do you feel you need them? And if you examine that thought, you'll find that somewhere online you bought into this idea that I've got to do something to wake up. Or something's missing. The classic is, oh, you know, something's missing, so I've got to do something. Well, let's take it one step back. What's missing? And it's amazing people don't seem to know what's missing. They kind of go, oh, you know, but... And it's like, no, come on, seriously. Okay, look, I'm in this enlightened being, okay? I've been on a few podcasts, so obviously I must be enlightened and stuff. And then I'm brown as well. I'm from the Indian subcontinent, which I'm now really building up my credentials. I'll go looking for this thing that's missing. And people go, oh, it's like... So what you're really saying is nothing's missing. But we buy into these things. So, you know, going to the mental health area, talked to a young man recently who told me that he didn't like doctors. And his doctor told him he was depressed. So I asked him the question, how do you know you're depressed? He's like, oh, you know, because my doctor said, yeah, but mate, you just told me that you didn't like your doctor, you didn't believe in what he said. Oh, okay, so it may not be depression. So these simple little logic traps that we put into place in order to stop ourselves from being what we are. And let's be honest, we actually put this into place. And the reason for that is because we buy into the story of being a limited being and stuff, because guess what? What happens when your excuses die? What happens when your stories die? What happens when you realise you've got to fess up and you've got to like man up, or you've got to woman up, or whatever it is and everything, and be what you actually are? That's a scary place to be. Well, it's not really scary, it's actually a very safe place to be, but guess what? There's thousands of years of conditioning, part of this whole consciousness, that's kind of saying, well, no, it's all about doing this. You're living a certain reality, sustain the reality around you. When you start changing, it's amazing what's going to happen to people around you. People won't like you. So, you know, the first thing I heard when I did my first YouTube video was, what the fuck does this man think he's playing at? What's really funny is now the guy's turning up for advice. But it's about really, in a sense, being you. But then here's the question again, what does it mean to be you? Who are you? I know who I am, but who are you? That's the question you should concern yourself with. Well, look, who am I? But not even as a technique. So don't kind of go, well, Zach told me to self-inquire, as it's actually known, and everything. So I'm going to go home and ask myself that question. Allow it to come up as and how. Because sometimes who are you can be quite a scary question. Sometimes you might see something you don't like. So take your time with it. Sometimes you might feel some very, very bad negative emotions and stuff about it. Take your time with it. Because guess what? We are human at the end of the day. I'd love to tell you that I'm going to float off the stage now with my magic carpets waiting outside, but who am I kidding? Because that's just the crap that we sold. There's a beautiful story of a man who goes to what would you term a dargah, which is an ashram, and this dervish walks in, and he does all manner of miracles in front of the students of another teacher. You know, he walks on water, does all that, turns lead into gold, he does all of that stuff and everything. And so the students round up, and then he jumps on his magic carpet and disappears, you know, as you do. So they surround their teacher. They kind of go, well, you know, he's done all these things, we've never seen you do this. And so he gets up and he flies through the air, does all of that and everything, and then he goes, but I'm actually concerned with something bigger. The miracles that you see and the whole, I don't know, flying and all that stuff, it's like, you know, there's a very famous saying, it goes, you know, the miracles are like the menses of a woman, it's unneeded. It's not something that's needed and stuff. The greater miracle is what's happening here. The greater wisdom is standing in that queue at Sainsbury's. That greater wisdom is having those problems with life and stuff, because it gives you that ability to learn, to learn and to be braver, to be more courageous. But we don't want that. We want to feel that we're going to save the world, don't we? And yet, you know, we want to do anything but face life, and yet that's where our answers are. It's like even me, I'm a problem. The very fact that I'm actually up here talking, I'm compounding the problem. If you're smart, you'll walk out on me. Because ultimately you have to walk away from the books, ultimately you have to walk away from your teacher as well. Ultimately you've got to walk away from all of this and then walk into yourself as to who you are. And then what happens is a guy there who goes, I've been waiting for you. And you kind of go, oh, yeah, I know, I've been trying to avoid you all my life and stuff. He goes, right, okay, let's just sit down and let's just try and call you on your bullshit, shall you? And the thing is this, when you get to that point when you're conversing with yourself, and I wouldn't advise it sitting in the queue at Sainsbury's and stuff, I think it never works and stuff, what you find is you can't form half of these questions. So half the questions that are being formed here can be formed because guess what, there's an apparent other. When it's within you, 99% of these questions die. As a matter of fact, there are no questions. It just collapses. And as it collapses, this whole edifice that you put together of this life of yours, you see yourself for what you are. But then, does that mean you just wander around in the days all day long? No. The best bit about ending seeking was I was sitting there on the sofa and had this amazing experience, and it was great and it was wonderful. And then the best experience after that was I opened the door to my cockroach-infested flat in Glasgow and went, this ain't meant to be happening to me. I'm enlightened. I mean, come on, seriously, I'm realised. I was like, Sufi, what the hell is that cockroach doing there? And he goes, bro, we've got an infestation. It didn't solve anything. It solved absolutely nothing. Probably the only thing it did is help me possibly live a braver life. But then as I started examining whatever was going on, and it started becoming part of me, not that it was ever separate of me, I kind of realised I could do a lot more. So, enlightenment is nothing but, for your purposes, and because I'm doing a talk, I'm going to tell you it's everything. I'm going to tell you it's the best thing since sliced bread. And I'm going to say, you really want to chase this sliced bread. Realise what I said. I'm going to say, go chase it. I'm going to say, go chase it, go mad for it. It's the only thing that matters. And is it as good as they would say it is? Yes, totally. Is there something to get? Most teachers will tell you there's nothing to get. I'm going to play devil's advocate tonight and say there is everything to get here. It's to get a fabulous lifestyle in the truest sense of the word. I'm a guy from Coventry. Now I sell books and do book signings and stuff, and people clap at the end of talks and wow, what an ego boost. It's great. But the thing is this, go through that journey. Go through that journey, whatever that journey is and stuff. Because I would love to say, I'd love to be really spiritual and use the right terms, but it's just nonsense. It's just complete and utter nonsense.
Nonsense to you?
It's nonsense to everybody if you really want it to be.
Oh, not everybody though, are you?
Well, yeah, I am.
Oh, are you?
Yeah.
It's a central belief system that you've got based on your experiences.
Is my experience similar to yours? Sorry, is my experience dissimilar to yours?
You're coming at it from when you said to know thyself.
But what does it mean to know thyself?
As Krishnamurti may say.
I'm sure someone else said it as well.
Everybody said everything.
Yeah, exactly, which is why there's nothing original here. What I mean by that is this is just a guy's interpretation. The whole thing is what you take from it. Because the thing is this, it's like you're going to hear what you want to actually hear. You're going to hear what you actually want to hear. This is why that question's being thrown out, well, who are you? Because the thing is what you concern yourself is with yourself. It's as simple as that. If this helps, well then great, makes me feel good about myself and stuff. If it doesn't help, then please be free to reject this stuff as well. Because I've done the same thing. I've gone into a place and kind of went, well, no, that doesn't make sense for me, because it is really about going and finding your way. I would love to tell you I'm the ultimate, and I'd love to tell you that, guess what, you really want to buy places to my retreat. Maybe in a couple of years from now when I've got the bank balance issues going on, then I possibly will. But at this moment in time, it's about empowering you to take your journey. I mean, you know...
saying that you're enlightened, or saying that you were enlightened.
Well, say that again, sorry.
Is that not the ultimate?
What, enlightenment? No. Enlightenment's just an event that occurs.
You, so it's like
Sorry, I can't hear you. Say that again.
So you're saying you're not the ultimate. How can you use that word enlightened in the same context?
Well, what do you understand of enlightenment? What do you think enlightenment is?
Asking you the question.
Well, enlightenment's just life. It's just being just as and how you are. And that's why there's no real fuss to it. At the end of the day, it's just living in the truest sense of the word. But the thing is, I can see there's the mystique behind it, because I bought into the mystique, going back to Krishnamurti. If you read U.G. Krishnamurti's The Mystique of Enlightenment, it's absolutely incredible what's happened. We've built an entire industry around it, to the point where, yes, we are in a sense part of the problem. Like I said, I am part of the problem. So in a sense, even I have to be rejected. But if I'm rejected, what then is accepted? And it's whether you can accept yourself, whether you can realize that there is a point where all of this finishes. It's just my job to, in a sense, sit here and do talks and stuff and everything. But is it any different from anybody else? No, not really. It's just a guy, as I said, sitting on a chair doing a talk. If it can be seen for that, then you can see that, well, I can safely now just let this go, because I don't really need this. But then what do you need? And it's like, well, okay, I possibly need myself. If at all you've realised that you've already found yourself, then it's great. Then yes, you just carry on doing what you do, really. But yeah, it's one of those things where it's like when you pass your driving test, it's absolutely wonderful. It's like it's the biggest thing ever, and then 2-3 weeks later you think you're Vin Diesel and stuff. So I'm coming at it from a viewpoint, and you are right, I'm coming at a viewpoint where I'm in a sense demystifying it, because I'm seeing that the mystification of it has created so many problems. Because what's interesting is, although we're saying things like let go, and we're saying things like stop doing this and this and this, it's scary. Why are these crowds getting bigger every year? And they seem to be getting bigger and bigger because we have all of this information. We know what's going to be said. We know what he's going to say. We know the books he's going to quote and everything. And yet we have this massive information. But that information is just useless. It's like, it's what do you do when that information goes live? Or what can you actually safely put that information down? When you can, then you'll find I'm not talking to you. But then you'll find you're not asking me, because there'll just be a collapse. There's just, in a sense, silence. So the ultimate talk for me would be when I could sit here one day and not say a word. But then what would be even better than that is if there was nobody even speaking, nobody even listening and stuff. That's realization going to the point where there is no need to speak of it. So, to give you a real-life example, I went to a place called Multan in Pakistan, which is affectionately known as the city of Sufis. And yeah, well, I was there for a whole month, and what was really incredible was I didn't talk like this. There was absolutely no space to speak about this. It was great because there was just that reality. And then I went to a village outside and I actually did a bit of a talk. The very fact that there's space to talk of this here is why talking happens. When that space is eliminated to the point where there is just reality, then you'll find you're just going about your business. Because the funny thing about it, when I got out there, guys I was bitterly disappointed, because I really wanted, guys with long beards and robes to be sitting on every corner, because guess what? This is the city of Sufis. But there wasn't. There was just the rickshaw driver, the guy who served my tea in the morning, and that guy and that guy. And it was incredible. They were just living it. And there was silence. There wasn't a need. When there's no need for this will just go. It is literally just a guy in a room speaking. And eventually what happens, and it happened for about 8 years, where there was really no need to speak of it. And it was like, well, I'll just go back to life now. Because it's the most important thing in the world, and guess what? It's not as well. And that's a paradox. But that's a paradox that has to be experienced, but just then to really mess it up, it's experienced by no one. And yet it's experienced by everyone. So can you claim enlightenment? Yes, of course you can. Can you not claim enlightenment? Yes, you can as well. You can do both, because guess what? That's what freedom does. Because one of the things that's happened is, since the 60s and the gurus coming over, we had a lot of people coming over from the Advaita school of thought, which is it's all just this, it's all just one consciousness, but there is Dvaita as well. which is basically in a sense almost like a witnessing of being as well, because really our state is to, there is this unity of being, but there's also a witnessing as well. And it's about showing both halves, which basically means, can it be claimed? Yes, it can be claimed. Can it not be claimed? Yes, it can. No, can it not be claimed? Yes, you can do that as well. Are there methods to it? Yes, there are. Are there no methods to it? Yes, but sometimes you have to go through one to get through the other, which is why I say there's a beginning, middle, and end to this thing. So there is a technique going on here.
Paradox on the,
Sorry?
may as well just write the word paradox, because that's what it is.
I would even throw the word paradox out, because what would happen is when it's seen, then the word paradox becomes redundant as well. It disappears. Yeah. It disappears in the sense that what happens is, I would see it's kind of, I would love to say it's more than what it actually is. I'd love to kind of, I don't know, maybe chant some Sanskrit at you guys, because you could say you've got something here. But the way I see it is, well, going back to that whole OSHA thing, you already have enough information, you already have answers. Then by me adding to those answers, I'm complicating the issue. So I'll just beginning, middle, and then tell a few stories, have a few jokes and stuff, and what will happen is somewhere along the line you kind of go, yeah, I kind of knew all that already. Well, of course you did, unless you're an alien, and then, welcome, you probably don't know this stuff. So it's just in a sense a reminder. Sorry, you laughed in the back. Were you going to say something, bro?
That's not me.
Oh no, it's the guy next to you.
Yeah, he answered the lack.
Oh, that's cool, man. He's listening then in that case. The best reaction we ever had to a talk was, I was with this guy once, we did a talk, and it was like a random one. And this woman walked in. It was basically 2 Jehovah's Witnesses, and I don't know if you guys have ever sat with Jehovah's Witnesses, but it's a really cool conversation. So the guy pulls out his Bible, gives us his Bible as well. And the funny thing is, he was a Nigerian guy, and she was a Japanese woman. And they were married, which I thought, wow, that's an interesting conversation. But what happens is, as we started speaking, she just flopped on the sofa and fell asleep, started snoring. It was kind of cute snores as well. And then as she got up and stuff, you know what I mean? It was like, oh, okay, we're at the end of that. Who actually listened? She did. That's a beautiful thing, But whereas, yes, there were people kind of toing and froing and stuff, but that's the nature of it, isn't it? Keeps me busy. Wow.
Have you experienced ego death?
Sorry, say that again.
Have you experienced ego death?
What do you mean by ego death?
We sort of got really like an infinite universe,
Mm.
and then we've got we're born with an infinite mind with infinite capacity,
Yeah.
and that mind's sort of like trapped in conditioning, sort of as we grow and as we learn from society. So I always understood a part of transcendence was to sort of break through that conditioning, so you become free of it. And then you do see.
The way I'd answer that is, what's the ego? What's the ego? Because there's a lot of ideas about the ego. I mean, in the Sufi tradition, there's 3 levels of ego. There's one that's kind of completely obedient. There's one that's like, and I think Freud goes down the whole route as well with this ego, superego, and things like that as well.
I suppose what I'm asking is, do you feel like you broke free of your conditioning?
No, because what I said at a talk recently is, I'm a victim of my conditioning, but I'm also free of my conditioning. Figure that one out. So I'm a victim in the sense that I'm a brown guy sitting on the stage talking about enlightenment, and guess what, if I look back in my family tree, there were other people like me who did this kind of stuff, and yet at the same time I'm free of it. So I was like, go figure that out. It's like, granted the world is an illusion, but we still have to live in it. So you're there and you're not there as well, simultaneously. So you can register this as real, but at the same time also realize that it's not real. So the ego thing is interesting, because there seems to be this big thing about it. I really don't know what this ego thing is that people go on about. I know it's meant to be this thing that we transcend, and we do this and this and this and it. But honestly speaking, I don't see an ego. Honestly speaking, I don't see much.
Yeah, I suppose I'm just using a word that you pick that up from.
Yeah.
I just think the conditioning, I'm aware that I'm slowly sort of breaking down the conditioning of my childhood and sort of my early 20s, and as that breaks down, I feel freer.
Yeah.
But I'm just wondering if you got to a point where you felt like you was completely.
Yes and no. Yes and no.
Yeah.
What I mean by yes and no is, am I free of conditioning? Well, there's never really been any conditioning. Yeah. but at the same time no, because there's this conditioning which allows the story to carry on, which allows, you know, me to be identified as Zahir Khan, which allows me to be identified with the story and allows me to play roles, you know, be, you know, the perfect husband, you know, the perfect brother, the perfect this, the perfect that, and everything. So yeah, it's needed. I use it as a tool. I use conditioning completely as a tool. I'm free of it in the sense that I can play about with it. So for example, I was talking to a very politically correct crowd, and I just kind of went, yeah, check this out, you're sitting in a room with a brown boy talking about enlightenment and stuff like that, because I'm a cliche in the truest sense of the word. Let's be honest, in the 60s you had guys in robes. Now we're still brown, but we're coming at it from a different viewpoint. So I'm actively using my conditioning now as a way to reinforce a point. But at the same time, does conditioning matter on some level? No, it doesn't really matter. And yet it's all kind of happening in this whole play.
I suppose what I mean is, like, when I come across a situation, my conditioning can cause me to be quite myopic in terms of what I can see as the solutions for me. But if I broke free of the conditioning, then I shouldn't stay.
Why do you even need to break free of it? What's wrong with that myopic reaction? The thing is this, we've been told that something's wrong, and if we need to examine, if we go down to the quote, we need to examine, well, what exactly is wrong? Because of the fact that something's wrong, the idea of then striving and doing something to become better then gets us on that merry-go-round. And that merry-go-round keeps going. And what happens is you will then never see yourself, because after I've done with the conditioning, then somebody might mention the word chakras. So then I'm in this complete, you know, like tears about getting those balanced as well. There's always something to do. And because there's always something to do, we never really look, because it starts from the premise that something's broken or something's missing. But then going back to what I said earlier, well, what's actually missing? If you sit with that thought, that just transcends it all. That just makes you go through it, because if you really look at what could possibly be missing, or what's broken, or what needs fixing, or what needs enhancing, and you really think about it, you tend to find that, well, there might actually not be anything that needs changing or doing anything like that. We've got to examine some of the stuff that a lot of our teachers have told us as well. We've got to examine that stuff. Because, you know, going back to the TM movement, you know, there was this whole thing about people were handed a secret mantra, which was then, as remember Phil telling me, was published on the internet and stuff and everything. And we were told that by saying certain things, it's like if I chant a certain thing, it will give me certain qualities. Is it actually that, or is it my mind starting to believe that if I don't know, do a certain zikr, certain things will happen? But if I can make things happen, then who could I be? And we're not just talking law of attraction, then we're talking like the whole experience of what can I possibly be, because we're so preoccupied with, well, once I get rid of this or get rid of that or add this or add that, that I'll then be in this place where I'll have this sense of ease. You know, if you really think about it, even in the spiritual community, we've actually bought into the same ideas that the 9-to-5 workplace has, which is you work for 40, 50 years, you get yourself a nice little clock, and then you retire. So this whole idea of delayed gratification, you know, which they talk of in say economics and stuff, you know, I won't spend now, I'll save my money, I'll compound it, and then there'll come a point where I can actually, the same thing's happening in the spiritual community, this whole idea of delayed gratification. Once this is all in place, then I will be free. And I've seen that happen all over, and it's one of the reasons why, yeah, there's more and more people showing up at talks, and it's that whole idea of once everything is in place, then. But what do? You take your own realization of what your true nature is and you put it into the future. You kind of go, yeah. And what you're doing is you're then just chasing it. It's like that whole, you've got a carrot on the stick, but you've decided to dangle it in front of you. Because, and if you examine the reasons, you'll realize there's a real fear there. Or there's some reasons that you've put into place to stop yourself from seeing what you actually are. Because sometimes we need these reasons to give us a sense of worth. If there is no worth here, and there is nothing here, then the very idea of you disappears. That's terrifying. Oh my God, the very idea of me disappears. But then will I register? You know, one of the most amazing thoughts I ever came across was a guy who didn't want to wake up because he thought he was going to forget his wife and his children. Really? And as he woke up, I was like, do you remember your wife and children? Well, of course. But then if we examine that, that's a thought that's originated in the mind, saying, well, what's better than what we've got? You know, it's a false, you know, bill of goods that we've sold ourselves. That, yes, you know, wants this, and this, and this. And the beautiful thing about that is that you're going to get to the end of it all and kind of go, I've just wasted a load of time. How about now? Just accept, it's just this. Whatever's going on right now is it. But even that has now become a thing as well, because you get a lot of people saying it's just this, it's just this, it's just this. Then if you're just saying it's just this, why have you not accepted that? So there has to be an acceptance, but what you find is, if we really examine it, most of us don't really want to wake up. So we have these ideas and we have these thoughts in place. We put these things in place. So examine the reasons as to why you are in the state that you're in. And you'll find it's because it gives you a sense of worth to come to these meetings. It gives you a sense of worth to be part of a spiritual community, or to engage in spiritual beliefs or practices, or to think in a certain way, because it gives you an idea of worth. It gives you something to do. And yet, if there's nothing to do, then, well, why would you accept that? So then what you do is you take there's nothing to do and you turn that into another mantra as well. It's amazing what the mind is doing with these little ideas and little tricks and stuff, because, it wants to. But if we put it back to you and say, well, let's just play with the idea that you are awareness and you are this infinite consciousness and stuff. You put these ideas in play. And then why did you put these ideas in play? Which is then what you do is you then start examine the reasons as to why you did this. Oh, but I don't want to do that. That's uncomfortable, because then I'm going to get called out on my own lies. But guess who's going to call me out? I'm going to call myself out. And I don't want to do that, because going back to what I said earlier, lying to others is not a good thing, but the lies we're telling ourselves are absolutely brutal. So whenever we see suffering or anything like that, it's a discord we have in ourselves. It's something that we do. But again, this is where emotions are such an amazing thing, because they are constantly showing us a way to see more of ourselves. I remember once waking up on a Monday morning and having 4 days of complete fear. Imagine this, you get up in the morning, you're making a cup of tea and you're feeling fear. It doesn't make sense. And then Friday morning it disappeared. Cool. I'm so glad you said 5 minutes, because I'm getting bored of this lot. No, I'm kidding. I'm running out of things to say. So what happens is I have this complete fear for 4 days. And on Friday I wake up and it's gone. I walked into a talk on Saturday, did a talk about why I had 4 days of fear. And people were like, oh, hold on, what do you mean you might feel fear? Why was that fear there? Well, it was because part of me knew that something was changing. So the fear came up. It gave me a lesson. I couldn't witness it. I couldn't negate it. I couldn't push it away. It just came up. So it was a massive lesson. So sometimes if emotions and thoughts and everything are in your face, there's a wisdom there. Accept it. It's your early warning system. It's your way of actually knowing things and stuff. Everything. So don't deny different parts of the human experience. Don't say, well, I've got to be like this or I've got to be that. Because inevitably, the end of seeking is the end of separation. But if you're putting separation into place via ego, via I'm going to do this and this and this, don't be too surprised if you're still sitting here 10 years from now looking for the answers. Don't be surprised, because you've put it in place. But instead, examine as to why you put those into place. And then what happens, if you can sit with them, whatever thoughts, feelings or emotions come up, and take your time, that's the big thing, take your time with it. Rome wasn't built in a day. What you will find is you can slowly but surely then let these things go. And as you let these things go, as you so rightly say, you'll see more and more of what you are. You will, in a sense, just fall into that mystery that's called life. And the beautiful thing is, as I say, we'll finish, but this thing won't finish. That's why this whole concept, there will be 7 lives and 7 more. There could be infinite number of lives and we would still not get to the bottom of this. This is why I said I was a hidden treasure, I wish to be known. But what wish to be known? Who did it wish to be known to? And if we're not separate from this treasure that's being spoken of, again, I'd like to end with that question. Who could you possibly be? Thank you.